But we're not here to talk about Orange County.
No, we're here to talk about another nice movie.
Brotherhood of the Wolf. In 18th century France, the Chevalier de Francois and his Native American friend, Mani, are sent to the Gevouden. We're going with it. Province.
You're doing pretty. So, like, you always joke about how, like, you're not good at, like, pronouncing certain, like, Japanese names and things like that. And you might not be. But you're doing well with these French ones, man. I'm proud of you.
Maybe I found my calling with the old French language. People,
maybe you're not, but I think you're doing good.
The language of love. Province at the king's behest to investigate the killings of hundreds by a mysterious beast. All right, so this was written and directed by Christophe Gans.
Yes.
We have a lost episode out there somewhere in the world
that you'll never hear.
Of Silent Hill. We talked a little bit about it. What do you think of Silent Hill? Because he directed Silent Hill, of course, and this came before that, and I think a lot of it led to him getting that.
I like Silent Hill. I think Silent Hill, it meanders a bit. It gets a little bit boring with the plot. Like, I just kind of love the visuals, and there are some really scary, like, gnarly sequences and creature designs and stuff in that movie. And there's just like
Pyramid Head is a standout.
Oh yeah, the one that always gets me too is the guy who comes out of the bathroom stall.
Mm-hmm.
The janitor that was like touching kids and stuff. That's like now like a weird creature. I like Silent Hill. It works for me mostly. Yeah.
Me too. I think it's one of the best video games, and especially when it comes to that horror side of things.
I agree.
This was a follow-up to a movie called Crying Freeman, and I bring that up. It was a cult hit elsewhere. I don't think it ever came over here, but it also starred Mark Dacascos, Samuel Le Bahan, Cassell, Vince Cassell, and Monica Bellucci. So this is kind of he used a lot of the same cast from that movie.
That's cool. I've not seen that. No.
In this movie. And then one more thing I wanted to bring up too. He founded in the 80s a magazine in the early 80s called Starfix magazine. And this was a magazine dedicated to genre films. It was a French magazine. I think of like a Starlog.
But French.
Yeah. But he wanted to talk about horror movies, sci-fi movies. He was a big Carpenter guy. He was a big Romero guy, and a big fan of Italian horror, as I think you can see. But he wanted to highlight a lot of...
This feels very Italian horror to me.
Yes.
In a lot of ways. It feels very giallo in certain ways.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, especially like one specific sequence. But he wanted to highlight a bunch of this. So he founded this movie, or he founded this magazine. I bring this up because it's kind of a cool fact. It was in 1983. A couple cool facts here. Starfix published its first issue with its first cover. It had The Dark Crystal on it. And a neat factoid about this is the creature effects were done by the Jim Henson Creature Company. Which also did The Dark Crystal. Another thing is, this movie, his magazine, I think it's still running, but it was running in 2001 as well, and it had Brotherhood of the Wolf on the cover. So he had his own movie on the cover of a magazine he founded back in...
How cool is that?
What a baller-ass movie.
Yeah. I'm a fan of his.
Yeah. He hasn't done... I haven't seen a ton more of him outside of this and Silent Hill, I don't think.
Yeah, I've seen a couple things he's done, I want to say, but I'd have to look...
I do wish he was a little more prolific. Yeah.
Agreed. And that's a compliment. So this is actually based on a true story.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy. This is... this actually happened. So there was actually a...
It did kind of actually happen.
Yes. It was basically all the events up until in the film, up until up until the wolf is killed and displayed, like put on display.
Yeah.
When he fakes the taxidermy, like makes it like that kind of all happened.
Yeah.
And like all the characters in this movie are based on real people, with the exception of Dacascos' character.
Right.
Everybody was technically a real person who lived.
Right.
Which is nuts. So the actual beast of Gevouden was supposedly a wolf-esque creature, and it killed around 100 people.
Yes. Yep.
Over a 3-year period, and was eventually, so they say, was eventually killed.
And it kind of it's similar to the way the movie does. They said they killed it one time, and then the Vatican, the church, or the seers, I believe they're called the Holy Seers. I can't remember. I'm blanking on it, but it's very Jaws-like in that they're like, everything's fine now, and then the killing started happening again.
And I love it when a movie is able to take a real event, that as long as it's a real event that's like far back. I think when you try to be cheeky with stuff that's in the recent history, I usually don't have an easy time with that. But I love when you can take an event that happened way back when that not a lot of people are even familiar with.
Similar to something like Black Death.
Yes, or even like Ghost in the Darkness.
Yeah.
Which I know a lot of people don't like that movie, and I don't love it either, but like that's a story that not everybody knew, and they were able to make an adventure film out of it, right? For better or worse. I like the idea of doing that, and I like the idea of doing that in this. Same with the other one I think of is with Antonio Banderas, The 13th Warrior.
Oh, yeah.
Another one that has a basis in history that I think is cool because you can take those events and you can kind of make them larger than life and cinematic, and why not? I mean, it's an interesting story if you can turn it into a movie and kind of up the ante and stuff. I have no issue with that. I think it's cool
for sure. Real quick here too, because it stars. We've talked about Dacascos. We'll talk about Vincent Cassell.
Oh, we'll talk more about it. Don't worry.
Samuel Lebahan. I don't have a ton of notes on him and his performance here, but it stars him. I wanted to bring this. He was in the French horror movie Frontiers, which is kind of like a new French extremity horror.
Yeah. Oh boy, that's a movie.
Yeah, and
you've seen it, right?
I don't think so. No,
it's rough, buddy.
Yeah, I need to. Yeah, so this is one of those things too, where a lot of these French extreme movies, like I've seen a couple. I've seen like Martyrs.
Which is also rough,
but I don't think I've not seen Frontiers, and I haven't seen a lot of them, and now I'm getting close, like I'm old, and I'm like, do I want to? There's like part of me like I should see that.
If you're gonna do it now.
Yeah,
because there's gonna be a point where you go, I don't need that.
But he's also a boxer, and he has the following quote that I pulled from his IMDb. He says, "Money makes you appealing. Success makes you beautiful. Power is aphrodisiac." This is his IMDb, on his IMDb. This is not a quote from a movie, I don't think. I think this is just something he said.
This guy rules. I actually quite like him in this movie.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah. He's a fun lead. Yep. He plays.
What I like about him in this movie, I'll just say right now, is that he starts off the movie. He's cool and he can kick ass and he's smart and he's a good leading man. He's got a charisma about him and a kind of a certain level of flamboyance about him almost. So it's like he enters the room and everybody's like, "Here's the philosopher."
Right.
And it works, but he's kind of a dork because he's always palling around with Dacascos, who's the badass, right?
Right.
And when we get further into the film and Dacascos exits, there's an immediate like, "Oh man, this sucks." Like now I'm stuck with this nerd. Like I like him, but he's a nerd. But then like when he turns on the badass, I buy it. I'm like, okay, yeah, this guy rules. Like now he's kicking ass. It reminds me of that quote from that line from 40-Year-Old Virgin where I always thought Damon was a Streisand, but he's really kicking ass in this one. Yeah. Anyway.
All right, so the movie. This is my first time watching it.
Yeah.
So
I want to hear your thoughts first.
Let's go me first. The first thought I had when I looked at this is, Willie, you madman. This is a 2.5-hour French flick.
So,
and I also had planned, because we had to switch around our recording this week, I had also planned to like maybe build it a day or two to get this watched.
When I picked it, I did not realize. I didn't remember how long it was. If I'm being completely honest. I'm with you. I'm not usually one for movies that go longer than 2 hours at this point in my life.
Right.
Some movies deserve it and need it, and that's cool. But yeah, it's hard. Yeah. Anyway,
the other thing is too.
My apologies for that.
No,
it is French, and I can't help that part. There is a dub version though, and actually, I watched the dub version because we did have to adjust our schedule, and I had to watch it today.
And you had seen the movie before.
I had, yes, and I've seen it in the original French before. So I watched the dub is actually very good.
Okay.
And most are not. This is very good. So if you really, really don't want to watch the French, or you're watching it and you're not able to read subtitles the whole time, the dub is a solid choice. Honestly, it is.
And that's the thing for me when it's the first time with a foreign flick, especially when I'm watching for the podcast. I have to watch it with subtitles. I have to watch it in original English. But on like repeat viewings, I will throw on a dub.
And Dacascos does his own dub, which is cool.
Cool. So then I started watching. I got drawn in. The first hour he's kind of like it's more of a mystery in some ways. I got sucked in by the mystery. It's a little slow moving for me at times, but then the action stuff starts to kick in the back half of the movie, and I was all in. Dacascos shows up and he's like wearing like that duster and he's out kicking ass.
He rules, dude.
He's so sweet. When that part of it really kicks in, that's when I'm like, okay, this is sweet. And it is. I read the. I sometimes like to read reviews of movies that I watch, and Roger Ebert is one of the movies because it's always at the top of IMDb. But also, but he called it. I have a quote from him, and I like the quote. So it says he called this movie an explosion at the genre factory because it very much is. And you mentioned one of them, but it is. There are giallo elements. There's like slasher elements. There's creature feature elements. There's action movie elements.
There's kung fu movie. Like there's like martial arts film elements to it, which is crazy. It makes like it shouldn't.
Right.
But it works.
And we've had a fun kind of like conversation on the Discord, and I won't spoil too much about this movie, but Jason, one of our listeners and friend of the show, he pointed out like the Malignant IMDb for Malignant, the IMDb like the genres, it's been like all over the place on what it is, and I kind of love that, and I love those type of movies where you can't pin it down because. This is it has horror elements, but it's got tons of action elements too. It's not, you can't pin this movie down, and I dig that about it.
It's also a period piece.
Right.
It's also kind of an epic.
Yeah. That's the other thing is it feels very epic. I had a ton of fun of with this movie. I think it is a little bit long for me.
It is a little long.
Personal taste.
No, I would 100%. Yeah. I will say it is a bit long. It doesn't need...
The first hour could use some trimming, I think. So, and if I recall correctly, I think I felt similarly to Silent Hill. Because Silent Hill, is I think Silent Hill's around 2 hours.
It overstays its welcome the tiniest bit. Not enough to ruin the film, but
no.
But yeah, I'm with you.
For sure. So yeah, final quick thoughts on it. Enjoyed it. Could have used some trimming, but I liked how kind of wacky and epic it feels at times, because we've talked about this before. There aren't a ton of epic horror movies out there, and this is kind of one.
This one feels like, and like I said, 13th Warrior I mentioned earlier is another one that feels like a horror epic, because it's very much, that feels almost even more like a horror film to me. 13th Warrior does in a lot of ways, but it's got more. I don't know. They're similar in some ways, the two movies, and I like both of them a lot. Brotherhood of the Wolf kind of rules. Like, it is too long. I think all the performances work. I love, and what I noticed this time around, and it's probably because I've watched a ton of Italian horror that I hadn't seen. I've tripled or quadrupled my Italian horror knowledge since the last time I watched this movie, whenever that was, 10, 12 years ago. And so this time around, I noticed more of that influence. I'd always noticed the creature feature stuff is pretty upfront. I'd always noticed like the kung fu movie elements with the fight choreography and whatnot. But this was the first time I really went, wow, like this is like a giallo, just like a bigger budget, action-packed, like Hollywood version of a giallo, but not a Hollywood, but done by a French filmmaker,
right?
Which is probably why, it's cocktails like that make movies that stick with you because they're just interesting and different. I think Versus is a great example of that too, where we talked about Versus recently, where it's like
very similar movie in some way, like
certain ways, where it is a cocktail of. It is a what did Ebert say?
Yeah, a genre explosion at the genre factory.
Yeah, that's both of those are. And I love movies like that when they're done well. I think it's great. You see the inspirations that Gans has for this film, but I think it stands on its own. I think it's a compelling story and an interesting story. Kind of a cool slice of history. Obviously, this is not a one-for-one historical recreation of what actually happened. You couldn't make that because there is no one for it. Events that old aren't ever documented with 100% accuracy, so why try? So he took that and went, I'm going to make a fun, crazy action horror, thriller, mystery, hybrid with it.
Right.
I think it's a ton of fun. Yeah.
And as far as placing it in kind of the time frame, it is around the same time some of those movies we talked about, some of those kind of that new French horror boom of the 2000s. It did come out around that time.
It did, yeah.
I think it's towards the early end of that.
Just before a lot of those really broke out.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we're at with that. So let's dive into this plot a little bit if you're cool with it. I a lot of the times I like to rewrite the plot in my own words, but I was a little lazy today.
Well, we were
from
Wikipedia. So yeah, we should know. We rescheduled, and we were like, I guess we're doing it today. Like,
let's see how my pronunciation holds up here.
I'm excited.
During the French Revolution, Marquis d'Apcher writes his memoirs in his castle. He recounts to 1764 when a mysterious beast terrorized the province of Gevouden. Gregoire, a knight and the royal naturalist, as you said, he's a naturalist, of King Louis XV of France, and his Iroquois companion Mani arrive to capture the beast. Francois becomes interested in Marianne de Marangeas, the daughter of a local count whose brother Jean-Francois was also an avid hunter and a world traveler, whose arm was mangled and rendered useless while overseas. Francois is also intrigued by Sylvia, an Italian courtesan at the local brothel, who is played by Monica Bellucci, the aforementioned. All right, let's stop here for a second.
Yeah,
this is every character. Pretty much.
Yeah, it's pretty much everybody. Yeah, I mean, we're introduced right out of the gate. I don't know. I mean, it's the romance and the flirtation between is it Dufranc? God, now I'm gonna mess it up.
Oh, Gregoire de France.
Yeah.
That's why I just said Gregoire.
Gregoire.
Yeah.
His romance with Marianne is fun. Yeah, because there's a flirtation there and it's kind of like cutesy. And then he meets Monica Bellucci, and it's just like sex.
A lot of sex here. He wears it looked like a towel at first, but he's wearing shorts during the sex scene.
Is he?
They're like white shorts.
Okay.
That come down. It's weird. It's kind of weird.
Interesting. Maybe that's
she's not wearing shorts.
No, she's not. Maybe that's how they got down back in the day.
We got to talk about this, and I'm going to try to talk about the artistry of it a little bit too. But there's a shot in this movie, and I texted you about it. And there's a shot.
We should say we see man butt and woman butt.
Yeah, equal opportunity
nudity
here. On this way, well, maybe not equal, but we see plenty of butt here. But there's a shot of Monica Bellucci, and I swear I'm bringing this up to talk about Gans, his style. But the camera goes up her body.
Yes,
and it stops at her breasts, and it dissolves into the high peak mountains of France.
Like literally, one for one, they've CG'd mountains that are shaped just like Monica Bellucci's.
It's insane,
and you still see her face lingering in the woods there for a second.
It's kind of like I think it was one of the Indiana Jones movies when the Paramount logo like dissolves into like a molehill or something.
It's insanity,
but
it's great.
I bring it up because that is part of that's kind of he's got a bit of a cheeky style at times.
Sometimes,
Christophe Gans, and he's also not very subtle.
No, he is not.
So, and there's a lot of stuff that reminded me of Silent Hill, and specifically with kind of Bellucci's character, because there's some weird kind of like flashbacks to like different realms, it seems like, in this movie.
There's some trippiness, especially in the first hour and a half of the movie, where you get in some kind of like vision questy stuff. It's interesting. I will say one thing this movie does very well from a writing standpoint is it knows how to use what is it? Chekhov's gun? Is that what it is?
Okay.
Is that what it's called? What you call it when you set something up and then pay it off later?
Yes. I'm going to say yes.
Thank you. Yeah, because I always forget what the term is. I'm not that smart. They do that very well in this film because that first hour is long and probably too long, but everything that happens in the first hour pays off, right?
Right.
So you have everything from his first meeting with Monica Bellucci and her mentioning the story of how wives would poison their husbands to keep them loyal because they had the antidote. And it, like you don't think about it again, and then it pops up and you go, oh, she's good. She's, and then things like, and it happens a little bit later, but like Monty using the Native American remedy that he uses to bring the girl out of her coma. the little girl that is attacked.
Right.
That pops back up later. There's little things that are seeded in that first hour. Another one is Vincent Cassell's character, Jean-Francois. He talks about how his arm has been mangled in Africa by a lion. I think he mentions it's a lion that mangled him.
Right.
And all of that comes back into... now, mind you, Cassell's the bad guy from this. Like it's Cassell. Like, you look at him and you're the bad guy, like, obviously. But how it comes into play is kind of cool because... when you see that caped villain later on with the mangled arm and stuff, you don't necessarily put two and two together, and then you go, "Oh, cool! He's been hiding the arm the whole time," which feels very giallo to me. That reveal of like the disfigured.
Yes.
Yeah, it feels very giallo, right?
Yes.
Like there's that third act like reveal that one of the characters has a hidden deformity that like they've been like it's so Italian horror, and then of course the reveal at the very end with the fact that. What the beast is, which we'll talk about when we get there. I really want to talk about that. But it all, I love the writing and how everything that happens in these early interactions with the characters, the leads, does come back around. And I think does serve a purpose later on, even if it maybe could be trimmed.
So while investigating another victim, Francois finds a fang made of steel. A traumatized child witness swears that the beast is controlled by what seems to be a human master. As the investigation proves unfruitful, the king's weapons master, Lord de Beauterne, arrives to put an end to the beast. And
this guy's a dick.
Is sent back to Paris, yes. He realizes that the beast is actually an instrument of a secret society, the Brotherhood of the Wolf, which is working to undermine public confidence in the king and ultimately take over the country. Back in Gevouden, the attacks by the real beast continue, and Francois returns to put an end to the beast's killings. At a secret rendezvous with Marianne, they're attacked by the beast, where it mysteriously refrains from attacking her. All right, let's stop here. Big info dump there, of course.
Yeah, sure.
Most of my notes here, we covered it a little bit. We talked a little bit how it was a true story. I just wanted to bring this up to historians, because this is from history.com, the source of all things history. Historians, scientists, pseudoscientists, and conspiracy theorists have all proposed theories about the beast, what the beast was. Among the suspects, a Eurasian wolf, an armored war dog, a striped hyena, a lion, some kind of prehistoric predator, a werewolf, a dog-wolf hybrid, and a human. We will likely never know.
I love it.
Yeah.
So I dig it because like the result in this is, I think it's super creative and interesting. Like I like and like I said, we'll get there, but I think it works out good. I think what lends itself to the epic quality of this movie are the periods of time where things happen where you get like Francois gets sent to he fakes the taxidermy of the wolf and heads back to Paris, right? Mm-hmm. And he's promised this trip to Africa that he's always wanted to do. Like there's this passage of time that happens, and there's this traveling and these major events that are happening and stuff that I think build to make it feel like it's more of an epic. And I think that gets lost sometimes in epics, is that passage of time and the importance of like how long this story has been. Right. And I think they do a pretty good job of illustrating that in this. I think it helps to make it feel like a bigger. Essentially, it's just a creature that's killing people in a small village, right? It's not that big of a in terms of geographical scope. It's not that big, but the passage of time and the events and the travel involved and things like that, I think, make it feel bigger than it maybe actually was. So, yeah. Yes.
So Francois, Mani, and young Marquis set out into the forest and set up an array of traps to capture the beast. It is severely injured but escapes. Mani sets off alone in pursuit, where he finds a catacomb used in the beast's holding pen, inhabited by the Brotherhood. Outnumbered, Mani is shot and killed. Francois discovers Mani's body and performs an autopsy, finding a silver bullet, Jean-Francois' signature choice of ammunition. In a fit of rage, a vengeful Francois goes to the catacombs and slaughters many members, but is overpowered by the local authorities and is imprisoned. Okay, we got to stop here because this is where the action kicks in a little bit.
Yeah.
We should talk some. I should mention the opening of this movie is sweet, where she's like it's towards the beginning of the movie. I'm blanking on where exactly it happens.
Yeah.
But she's like thrown around on the rocks.
Oh
by
my
some,
God.
Unseen force.
It's gnarly.
It's awesome.
It sets up the
It drops you right into this. But okay, so this is where we should talk about Dacascos a little bit. Are you familiar with Mark's work?
Yeah,
Mark
a little bit. Yeah.
Yes.
Enough.
Yes. Yeah. So you know him from the Iron Chef. You know him from what do you know him from? Double Dragon.
Yep, he was on the Crow TV show, which I watched.
He was on the Crow TV show.
He
more recently he was in John Wick 3.
Yes, he was. I believe he's going to be the next one too. I think.
Oh, he was Eric Draven in the Crow. Eric Draven.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. I'm a fan of his. He pops up in action movies all the time.
He was in Cradle to the Grave, the DMX movie.
Okay.
Right? Yeah, DMX and Jet Li.
Okay. I think he's just got a good. I've always liked him. He just seems like he's got. I don't know. Just certain actors or whatever. You don't necessarily have a reason for it, but you go. I like the vibe that this person has. Like they seem like they're always having a good time in these movies. And I've seen him in some low budget stuff, and he always seems like he's like making the most of it. Always.
Right.
So I like Dacascos. So
he was in a movie, and it was kind of a cable staple back in the day, and it was called Only the Strong.
Only the Strong.
Now this is I'm gonna give my brother a shout out in here. He loved this movie. Now, Only the Strong was like about a dude who went back to like I don't know his hometown. I don't even remember what the plot was. Basically, he was like cleaning up the city and stuff with Capoeira. Now, are you familiar with Capoeira?
Yes.
It's a Brazilian martial art that is dance and acrobatics and music, and like in the movie they all get around in like a circle and they do like dance, like Capoeira.
It's like dance fighting.
Yeah, and they have a chant that it goes banana way, nana, banana way. And my brother and I used to sing that all the time when we were kids.
It's amazing.
It's a fun. Only the Strong, a very fun, and he's the lead actor.
Only the Strong. Okay.
Yes, Only the Strong. A very.
Is it
fun
available to watch anywhere?
Oh, let's see. I haven't.
I do want to mention. I didn't know this existed until literally just now. There's a film called Redline.
Okay.
Originally called Deathline.
Okay.
It's available for free on IMDb TV.
Okay.
And it's from 1997. It stars Mark Dacascos and Rutger Hauer.
Oh boy.
So, do with that what you will.
I do not see this streaming anywhere, unfortunately. I did find out it was directed by one Mr. Sheldon Lettich, who also directed Lionheart, Double Impact, and Rambo 3. So there you go.
Interesting.
So
okay.
And Legionnaire. He directed quite a few Jean-Claude Van Damme movies. Sheldon Lettich did.
Okay.
But he is a. It's his high school he goes back to. He's an ex-special forces soldier who goes to his Miami high school, and it's overrun with drugs and violence. So a very what's the movie I'm thinking of? Is it Stand and Deliver?
Yeah. Yes.
Or The Substitute? Yeah, maybe that's a better.
Yes. The Treat Williams series.
Yeah. So very cool. But anyway, in this movie in particular, he's quite a bit of fun. He's a badass.
Man, he's sweet.
There is a.
Yeah.
I don't think it's my favorite action scene in this too, but he has a couple really cool action scenes. My favorite action scene actually I think comes at the end. It's the fight at the end, but
with Cassell versus
the main guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All of his fight scenes are great in this movie. He's got a few of them, and for good reason, because he knows what he's doing. But his fight scene when he's up against the guys that eventually take him out, it rules. Like he's not gonna. He's not gonna make it. Like it's insurmountable odds. You know what I mean? So, but he's a badass, and he kicks all their asses with a tomahawk. Like, yeah. He rules. I think his performance is good. Like, I think it's a strong performance. Mm-hmm. It's not, it would have been easy for him to show up and roundhouse some stuff and look cool, and he does all of that. But his performance is actually really strong, I think. Like, I buy the character, I get the character, I understand why the character has a bond and a connection to I'm not good with French names. Fond du Lac.
Okay.
Yeah, yes. I understand why. I get it. And I think part of that is that Dacascos took this shit seriously. Did you read at all about what he was like?
No. I did, but yeah.
Yeah, like he learned how to ride a horse for this movie, which he does a lot of in the movie. He did a bunch of research on Mohawk Indian culture for the movie. And he became fluent in French for this film. Like, Dacascos rules, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. If he was at Motor City Comic Con, which we'll be talking about on Our Tiny Terror, I'd be meeting Mark Dacascos.
The other thing, too, is you are a big fan of Men on a Mission movies.
Yes.
And there are some Men on a Mission elements to this in the way
absolutely.
And he is kind of an example of that. He also adds to that kind of that genre explosion we've been talking about too, where he's like the kung fu action type. He's kind of like the B movie.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm looking to see if I.
But he's playing a Native American. Like it shouldn't work.
I'm also looking. There are
totally
places
does.
around here nearby where I can learn capoeira. Capoeira Mandinga, Detroit.
Please do. Do you want to take capoeira classes with me?
Absolutely.
You and I just do it together?
1000%. But yeah, he rocks it.
He's fantastic.
He's probably my favorite character in the movie. So
yeah, I think he's my favorite too, and I think he's got some really cool moments. I love his connection with the wolves. I love how he's constantly questioned and judged by the French aristocrat types, and that shit gets shut down real quick. Like
right.
no, you shut up about Manny. Like he's got it figured out. So yeah.
Sylvia visits him in jail and reveals she visits Francois and reveals that she is a spy for the Holy See. She explains that Henri Sardis, the local priest and leader of the Brotherhood, believes that he is restoring worship of God to France. Pope Clement XIII has decided that Sardis is insane and sent her to eliminate him. She then poisons Francois, saying he knows too much. Meanwhile, Jean-Francois comes to Marianne's room and reveals to her that he is the Beast's master. It recognized his scent on her when it came near her, which is why it did not attack. He then does he rape her or does he attempt to rape her?
He rapes her.
He rapes her. And then
this is his sister, by the way.
When she rejects his abandon. Yes.
Not that rape of any kind is okay.
Right.
But this is like just to add an extra element of like, that's his sister.
Incestuous rape,
yeah.
yes. Yeah. So what is the Holy See? It's like the universal government of the Catholic Church. It is the Vatican City State, essentially. It's a sovereign, independent territory. The Pope is the ruler of both the Vatican City State and the Holy See. So it's a supreme body of government of the Catholic Church is who they are in this. And this is the part of the movie that kind of showcases the power that it had around that time and the ability to kind of cover things up and say like, oh no, this is the way it is. And I mentioned, it's essentially like the 18th century Jaws in that way. Where
totally.
Where they're like, everything's fine. You can go in the
you're fine.
Woods.
Go walk in the woods by yourself. The beast is dead.
Right.
You'll be good.
All right. So you want to get to the finale here? You got anything else to say at this point? You can talk about Vincent Cassell's performance. I think
I mean, he's a little bit hammy. I mean, at times, but I think it works.
Is Vincent Cassell always hammy?
A little bit, yeah. He plays a good villain, right? He's got a certain there's something in his eyes, and you never quite trust him, even when he plays like a character who's like on the up and up, which is rare, to be fair. He plays a good bad guy, and I think he turned down this role initially, which is fun, and he eventually agreed to do it when they like added elements to his character. And one of those elements that he wanted was his incestuous obsession with his sister. So, all right, Vincent. He felt that was something the character needed.
Scarface fan.
Yeah, that must be it.
Yeah.
No, he's a good villain. And I like the reveal of the arm. I like the reveal that he's got the disfigured arm. By this point in time, he's involved. I mean, you can smell bad guy all over Vincent Cassell the moment he shows up in a movie. When he turns out to not be a bad guy, that's the twist usually.
Right.
I like his performance. I think he's fun, and I think he's got a good showdown at the end with our lead. So yeah.
Yes. So Sylvia's agents exhume Francois, who has not been killed, but merely put in a temporary coma, and he appears at one of the Brotherhood's sermons. He kills
with badass Sting face paint on.
Yes, he's very much like Crow Sting.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Crow, he kills several members, including Jean-Francois, who reveals that he had regained use of his supposedly maligned arm.
Yeah, he showed us all. Yeah, that a little while ago.
Sardis escapes.
He's got a weird bone sword.
Yeah, he does.
It like connects and disconnects and stuff.
It is wild, right?
It's kind of sweet.
I used to. It's like one of those big spears that you get at like the theme park or like at the toy store.
Yeah, where it pops like a lightsaber, like that you could get. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
You just get those at like the Dollar Tree, I think.
Yeah, but this one can kill people.
Take them to the beach and beat up some Sith lords. There
you go.
Cyrus escapes into the mountains, but is mauled to death by a pack of wolves. He sure is. Francois and Marquis go to the beast lair, where it lies severely wounded. It turns out that the beast was a lion that Jean-Francois brought back from Africa as a cub that was tortured into becoming vicious and trained to wear spiked metal armor, as one does. Francois takes pity and kills the beast in an act of mercy. Let's talk about the beast a little bit. What do you think of the beast? What do you think of this creature as a bad guy? You think he's a cool one?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he's sweet. Right. The CG isn't always great, but it's a product of its time.
Doesn't hold up great. It is a kind of a mix of CG and those creature effects we were talking about too.
Yes, and so what I will say is this: in the moments when it's heavily relying on CG and there's a full shot of the creature, it doesn't look great.
It's a little
but it is what it is. I will say they do a good job of being like Jaws in the first couple hours and not showing you a lot of the creature, which I think is smart. And they use a practical effect when they can, which is also smart. I will say, for as menacing as the creature is when you first see it and you first experience it, and the setup of the creature, really, before you even see it at all, by the end you feel so sympathetic for it, right?
Right.
And you never actually see what's behind the mask. You know what it is as a viewer because you can discern it's a lion cub who was brought back and whatnot based on what they say, and you can see its eyes. I think the creature, that was the most emotional thing in the movie for me. Is like, oh, this is really sad. Like this poor animal was like, raised in hate. Raised to be a tool of destruction. And it's cool. It's a cool moment when like the caretaker of the creature is with it, and you can tell he's upset, but like he knows what needs to be done. Like that, it's a cool. That whole bit works very well. It offers a lot of closure to the driving force behind the movie to begin with, which is at the center of it, the creature, right? That yes, there's twists and turns, and you find out that there's a lot of people involved in what's actually going on and stuff, and they get their comeuppance. But like at the end of the day, this is like the base plot of this is that there's a monster terrorizing a French village,
right?
And so the fact that you end the film on a note where the monster is the most sympathetic thing in the movie, and you're like happy for the closure you get with it. I think it's cool. I think it works really well. It worked well for me. So
for sure.
What did you think?
We mentioned the CG is a little wonky. The Jim Henson creature effects. He's got some rad ass armor.
It's sweet.
And I mentioned his kill. There also is kind of an element too of it's brought back from Africa as a cub. It's kind of like plucked from the that dark mysterious continent and brought over to kind of do the European bidding for these people. So there is kind of that element as well. Yeah. He's a cool villain. I really did like a lot of learning a lot about the backstory too of the real life, and I love that it's still kind of a mystery out there. So I love that this movie takes it. I love that it just goes with the cub, the lion. Lion. Yeah, that's what.
Yeah, screw it. Yeah. It's a lion with some metal strapped to it. Why not?
So to finish things up here, Marcus finishes writing his account just before he's led to his execution by a revolutionary mob. He states that he doesn't know what happened to Francois and Marianne after the death of the beast, but he hopes that somewhere they are happy together. A final scene shows them sailing on a ship named Frere Loup, Brother Wolf.
And spreading the ashes of Manny.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like the ending. I think it works. I like a happy ending in this case. Well, kind of happy, I guess, because he's executed, which is a bummer, But I don't know. Those French revolutions are real.
They can get a little nasty.
Real pain.
Yeah, they can get a little nasty sometimes. Yeah.
Everybody knows that.
All right. Final thoughts on this movie. I will just say I'll go back to that Ebert quote and just say what I love about it is he nails it. It's an explosion of genres. It's horror, and it is horror because horror is it's got like a sense of dread and it's got frightening images and themes and situations and all that stuff. And this movie has that. But it's also an action movie. It's also a kung fu flick. And the fight scenes really, really. They rock.
They're sweet.
Yeah, they rock, and that you have to deliver in that. So I love and we've covered a couple of them lately with this and Versus, kind of just big mixes of genres, and I've learned to love them. I used to be kind of a stickler for tone sometimes, but now I just go with the flow. I think it's part of getting older, maybe getting older, or maybe just maybe the youth got it right. You just mix together some genres and have some fun.
I think it can work. I don't know.
It's a very rap rock.
Yes,
that's what the youths love these days.
Absolutely.
Willie, what do you think? Final thoughts on this bad boy?
Yeah, it's a ton of fun, man. It's what would be like genre gumbo? I don't know.
Ooh.
Isn't that's what you'd throw a bunch of stuff in the gumbo, right?
Yeah, a little French flavor.
Louisiana. Yeah, yes, exactly. It's a ton of fun, and I think it's a cool movie, and I wonder if a lot of people have seen it at this point.
I'm curious about that too. I feel like it has been. I remember this being kind of. I don't want to say popular, but in the 2000s when I was on message boards a lot, I remember people talking about this movie as one
yeah, it just doesn't seem like one that gets talked about a ton now, and I wonder if maybe because we're old, Tim.
We are old. Yes.
It's I wonder if there's a generation below us, or under age wise, that maybe hasn't checked this out yet as much, or even maybe people like myself who haven't revisited it in a long time, or you hadn't seen it ever. So
I had never seen it.
So I hope that this brings people to check this movie out, because I think a lot of people will like it. Yeah. I
think some of it may be the language barrier. I think some of it too is Christophe Gans is not a very prolific filmmaker, like we mentioned, and his name's not out there, and so I think it maybe is kind of lost to time. But the movie is out there; you can rent it wherever. But I think it's definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, and there is a Screen Factory Blu-ray.
Did they just come out with one?
Just recently, I believe it was released.
Because it's the 20th anniversary of the film this year.
Yes. I think it just came out. I'll have to check, but I know they.
Yeah, it came out in July.
Yeah. Yep.
Cool. It's a collector's edition. Oh, I might have to check this bad boy out.
I honestly might get it, because this is one of those movies where I worry that it's going to disappear from streaming services at some point.
Right.
Because it's just kind of one of those movies where it's a cool kind of cult movie, but I feel like a lot of people will forget about it. I don't know. It makes me nervous, I guess. Yeah, I might pick it up. I don't know what the special features are on it, but